Hello, my dear students. Today our topic is phosphorus cycle. And before getting started, let me tell you that phosphorus cycle is relatively simple cycle, and it cycles locally, okay, between the biological and geological components of an ecosystem because the phosphorus cycle does not possess any atmospheric component, and hence we can say it is not moving from one place to another place with the help of wind or rain. So it is not a global cycle like carbon cycle, it is a local cycle. It cycles locally between the geological and biological components of an ecosystem. First of all, let's get started with the importance of this element. uh, it is a major constituent of biological membranes like phospholipids, and phospholipids form all the biological membranes. Nucleic acids like DNA and RNA, they also contain phosphorus. And cellular energy transfer mechanisms or systems like ATP. जो ATP होता है, the main constituent of ATP is phosphate, and it is because of this phosphate that energy transfer mechanisms are possible in living organisms. Okay, and many animals they also need large quantities of this element to make their shells, bones and teeth. Okay, जो teeth होते हैं या bones या shells होते हैं organism में, it is all because of phosphorus. Okay, now the reservoir. What is the reservoir of phosphorus? The main reservoir of phosphorus is the sedimentary rocks, and hence this cycle is known as sedimentary cycle. जो phosphorus cycle होता है, it is a sedimentary cycle because the main reservoir of this element lies in the sedimentary rocks, and in these sedimentary rocks the phosphorus is present in the form of inorganic phosphates. So you have rocks, and these rocks contain phosphorus. Now what happens is, when these rocks they get exposed on the earth's surface because of geological uplift processes, erosion and weathering of these rocks takes place, and this erosion and weathering makes phosphate available to living organisms. The phosphate gets added to the soil solution in the form of inorganic phosphate, and once introduced into the soil solution, the autotrophic plants they get their phosphate from the soil, and they incorporate this phosphorus into their living tissues. Now, movement of phosphorus in the food chain. You have plants, they have accumulated phosphorus in their tissues, living tissues. When the herbivores feed on the plants, the phosphorus gets transferred to the herbivores, and the herbivores are in turn eaten by carnivores, and hence we can say that the phosphorus has transferred across the food chain. Now, one more important process is decomposition that help us. This decomposition also helps us in the phosphorus cycle. The waste products and the dead bodies of living organisms, including both plants and animals, they are decomposed after their death by phosphate solubilizing bacteria, and this releases phosphorus back to the soil solution. Okay, and in this detritus food chain, the large organic molecules which contain phosphate, they are degraded by these bacteria, and the phosphate is liberated as inorganic ionic phosphate. Okay, जो डिकम्पोजिशन होती है उसमें जो बड़े मॉलिक्यूल्स होते हैं containing phosphate, they are degraded, and the inorganic ionic phosphate gets released to the soil solution. And finally, the phosphate that is present in the soil solution in the form of inorganic phosphate, it can either be absorbed by the plant roots, or it can be lost to the sediments either in the soil of a terrestrial ecosystem or in a sediment of an aquatic ecosystem. This is the details of the phosphorus cycle. Now look at the cycle on this image. Here you have rocks, and these rocks are formed by geological uplift processes, and weathering and erosion of these rocks leads to the formation of inorganic phosphate which gets added to the soil solution, and this inorganic phosphate is taken by the plants through their roots, and they accumulate this phosphorus in their living tissues, and once the plants are eaten by animals, the phosphate gets transferred to the animals, okay, and the death of both plants and animals, their dead bodies are acted upon by decomposers, and these decomposers, they release phosphorus back to the soil solution. Okay, now you have phosphorus in the soil solution, and this can either be absorbed by the plants, okay, again, or it is lost to the sediments, okay, or it is lost to the sediments. And when it is lost to the sediments, it forms the sedimentary rocks, and this sedimentation can take place in both terrestrial ecosystems as well as in aquatic ecosystems, okay. And one important point that you have to remember about phosphorus cycle is the phosphorus cycle. The phosphorus is it is moved. It moves from the terrestrial ecosystems to the aquatic ecosystems through runoff, okay, and it also moves from the terrestrial to the aquatic ecosystems through leaching, okay. You have a lot of phosphorus in the soil, and when rain falls on the soil, okay, a lot of phosphorus gets leached down into the aquatic ecosystems, okay. And this is all about the phosphorus